projects. Probably because I keep buying them. I've got more than enough projects. And I keep buying them. I could work on them the rest of my life if I lived till 120. Went out and picked a tomato. My wife's pretty caught up on picking the red ones. I couldn't hardly find one. There's a lot of tomatoes out there, and I can take this battery box off they put here. They put there now. It was a real lightweight one. I don't know what the guy got this from, but it's probably 16th inch, and he did brace it up a little there, right where he put the bolts in with a thicker piece, but I don't like where it sits way up there in the front. Darn near run into it when you come around a corner, so I'll show you what I built. Yeah, I like walking out in the garden there, eating cherry tomatoes. One good thing about them, because we got so many, we'll never eat them all, so you might as well eat them right from the garden. Well, here's how I came up with, while I was doing the alternator bracket and fixing this dashboard box. I knew I didn't like where the battery was over there, and I knew I didn't like that, and I kept eyeing these 3 bolts right here. I think I mentioned it twice in my earlier video that I kept eyeing these bolts. One here, one here, one over there. These 2 are even. This one I probably didn't even have to put in, but I did. I don't know what these are for. Probably a more or something, because I know the cultivator goes up there on those 3 on each side. And the rear one that I didn't get, that has those expensive 2-way, the rear cultivator would have had these fast hitch deals. I didn't get that. So the cultivator in the front would go up there. The back one would be the into the fast hitch 2-point. So I don't know what these are for. Like I say, maybe a midsection more. And they have those side dressing units. Then there's 2 more up here. Again, I don't know what those are for either. Here's how I came up with it. If you ever watched Working Girl, she had to prove how she came up with the idea. So she gave the story of what she read, which gave her the idea. And my idea was walking over to my little iron pile by the welder, which is right there. I got a bunch of scrap pieces all stacked up. First I had those red pieces out. I had 3 of those matching, and I thought I could do something with that, but it wasn't long. And then I went over there and dug, and I had put the Farmall 1948 Farmall seat that I'd cut up. I'd put that top portion. See how it's got the holes for the seat adjustment and the slots. So I decided that cleared these bolts. I cleared those bolts, so it was perfect. And it went down far enough so the battery could be about that height. So I stacked 2 bricks and a milk crate, and that's the height it is. 2 bricks and a milk crate. So now I had this piece here, this vertical piece. I had the bolts out of there, all 3, and I had that pushed up against there, sitting on the milk crate. That was up on top of 2 bricks, and then I go, this will work good for that. And then I had those 3 channels laying here and that would have raised it up 2 inches higher. So I brought those back over to the iron pile, and I came back over with this piece that I had laying against the wall. It wasn't even in the pile. It was I got some pieces laying against the wall, and the bottom's 11 by 9. So it came out 11, and then it goes up about another 8 inches, and it was to cover up a belt on some machine. I spotted this at the salvage yard several years ago, and it's been in my pile. And it was all rusty in the back, and the day I brought it home, I cleaned it up and painted it primer on the back, so at least I didn't have to do that on the spot. I'd already cleaned that up, and one side was okay, even had paint on it. So then I didn't want to cut it here, because then I have to do another attachment. So with this hole in here, I was able to put a 2x4 on the inside on my table here. Has a nice edge to it, a square edge, and I clamped the 2x4 down with 2 C clamps, a vice grip clamp and a C clamp, and I put the 2x4 right on the line where I wanted it bent, and I measured the battery. The batteries, I decided I wanted it 9, and it's a good thing because I even had to notch this back out, because this battery has these golden side posts. You can use it in either, and these were catching, so it's a good thing. And I did have 2 of these on there, so I didn't have to screw it in so far. I had 2 of these on there, so that brought it out and hit the battery, so I had to take one of those off. That got this bolt. Back far enough, and then I took a bed frame this is a bed frame piece of 1.5 inch angle iron. I bolted that on the inside so the battery could go up against this. So when, because these bolts I knew these bolts were going to be in there. Yeah, these bolts, now that I took that other piece out, they're just back far enough so that this tray I put here, angle I put there, then once I notched this out, I was going to say how I bent this. Yeah, I clamped that down on here, and then I put a tire iron in this hole, and I caught the edge of the table. So with a tire iron in there way out here, and on top of the tire iron I put a piece of wood so it would go all the way across, and I bent that up. I had to put a bigger clamp on to the sawhorses to the metal, or the metal was just lifting up. But anyway, I was able to get that bent. Didn't know if I had it straight. If I go too far, then I can't hit the battery, and everything looks square enough. I don't know, this is probably flat enough. So there's my bunch of, and then the last thing I did was I put gussets on it. I found one. If I see these in the scrapyard, I always grab them because I can brace something up and they're all cut. But time consuming. I mean, just on this stupid post that was holding up this headlight, it wasn't long enough, so what do? I do all this fastening and drilling to extend the piece. This is the kind of little stuff that takes forever, but now the battery box is there. I'm waiting for the paint to dry. I can throw the battery in there. Now when I use my 10 gauge wire from the alternator to the probably to the solenoid, or to the positive battery that's coming back to the positive, I got to change the coil around. Right now the positive is going to the points. See, right now I got the positive. I even marked it. I had it off reading, looking for the serial number. So positive right now is going to the points. That means it's positive ground polarity. So I'm going to switch this. So I'm going to have negative to the points. Then that's negative ground, like I feel they should be. So every time I put a battery charger, I don't got to take all the posts off because I don't know what I'm doing. So I got to switch that. And then they had these cables. I've never seen this style. It's weird, but I just know I probably could take this one that's hooked here and bring it up there somewhere. I could probably just use this again. And this one, yeah, this one will reach the battery. If it reached the way up here, it'll reach going back there. So then right there where that solenoid connection is, right there, I can unhook that and put my 10 gauge wire on there, I think, because this goes to the battery positive. So I'll put, it looks like this is a big 10 gauge wire here. Oh, if there's already one there and I can identify it, then I won't have to use one. But that's what I'll be doing in this video. Since my battery box is there now, I got the alternator hanging, and that's why I got to change it over to normal negative ground, because all alternators probably are negative ground. So I can wire the alternator, wire the battery, and wire the dashboard. There's all my gauges. They came quicker than I thought. So now I got the stuff. So this afternoon I'm going to eat my tomato I picked, and I'm going to come out and do this wiring. See you then. I also made sure I kept looking. I had a mark actually marked on here, so that this clutch linkage only comes about halfway towards this. Because I know I got to adjust it a little more. Either that or the clutch is stuck to the flywheel, but you can shift it as long as you keep the clutch in. So that's another thing I got to look at. The only problem with putting this here that I can see is if, of course, you're going to put something mid-mounted on the tractor and needed those. The other thing is, here's the plug. Here's the plug to drain the hydraulic, so that could be a little unhandy. And then, as I was looking at this, I looked over here. I'd never followed that handle before. It goes up to, this one over here is for the normal cylinder in the back. The normal cylinder in the back there. But this one here, these are each side separate then. This rod comes over here. This is the left rod, and over there is the right. Over there is the right rod. And they each come down separately. Obviously one to work this side, one to work the other side. So it's frozen. I can't budge them. So there's another thing I gotta fix. So yeah, at least the engine run good. I mean, I gotta do the carburetor, but I don't know. If I pulled the bearings off, if I pulled the oil pan off and pulled the rod caps off and looked at the bearings, then it would tell me how much use this has had. But that guy only used his tractor to mow around his trees in his yard. I should find his number and call him and tell him I posted some of the work I did on this on YouTube. but I doubt I ever will. But, okay, I'm gonna eat dinner, get back out and start wiring this. Okay, I got my gauges out. I'll explain what I got wired so far. I'm going to do the charging gauge. It doesn't say whether it's amps or volts. Does it? Just says charge. So it's probably, I don't know. These turned out to be 8 millimeter. 8 millimeter, yep. So let me talk about what I got done here. I got the battery in, my weird looking battery box, Frankenstein thing with the repurposing the top of the seat of the 48C and some kind of guard that went on, covered a belt or something on some machine. And then I ran a 10 gauge wire from the battery. Ran a 10 gauge wire. I cut underneath the gas tank behind, at the back of the engine block. And I came around and I used the solenoid. I used the solenoid for a junction box. And what else do I got junctions here? Right there. I guess I got 3 wires. I got the battery cable going to the positive. Because now I hooked the negative over here on the coil. I hooked the negative wire to the points. And the positive here is going up to the ignition switch. So now it's wired for normal negative ground. Not normal to this tractor, but normal to other things. In the 60s and up. So there's my points wire coming to there. This side's going to go over to the amp gauge. And it's also going to go on with my other wire that's coming from the junction box here, which is the solenoid. I repaired this wire. It runs down here. It runs down there and that steel channel. I could show you the one on the other side. That one you can see. There's the one on this side. On the left side, it's a steel channel. I mean, it's a thin piece of metal that's instead of being 360, it has a little space in it. So it comes around like a C and then has a little space in it. And that's what they make to steady the wire. This is my normal positive wire that's going over to that solenoid I'm using for a junction box. Keycap, that's also where I ran my alternator wire over to that solenoid junction box under the gas tank. So 3 things hook up over there. This battery cable, the positive. This battery wire that goes to this nut. And this wire here that's coming up to the amp meter. And the ignition switch is getting the one that goes to the points. And then this one, of course, will have to go to the other side of the amp meter if I want juice to go to the points, then to the switch. And one other thing, I got hooked the light box up. I had to go to the auto parts store to get a fuse. It's not going to be one that sticks out. It sticks out through that hole, because It just isn't made that way, and I don't have one of those international ones. So it's going to be one that will just be in the back of the box because you can get at it now because I'm not putting the battery in. So there's a benefit of that. I even teed it off in case I have to fuse two things, but I don't think I have to. So I'll just leave that blocked. So I will hook this to the amp meter. And I will hook this over to where it junctions in with the headlights. But since I have 6-volt lights still in it, I'll be leaving this wire unhooked for now because it'll be easy to hook because again the battery's not in the way and I'll be able to get right up to it. So when I get these things in there, then I'll install this box with the 3 bolts. That's how far I am. Well, that's how far I am, or that's how far I'm not. Because it's a whole nother day again. So, but it's very cool out this morning. So it's nice working conditions. So, back to work. Right? Right? Back to work, right? Huh? Right? So I either have a splatter of weld in here or the paint. The paint is doing it. It just fits too tight. And yes, you have to put these in before you wire them because they drop in from this side with a rubber seal. I suppose all the welding I did, something could have worked. But it seems like it's almost ready to go in. It's close. I'm just not going to hammer it. Okay, got it. And what's the other one going to be? Water temp. Guess I might as well put that one in right now too. Oh, shoot, I didn't sand the hole. Maybe this one will be different. Oh, what do I gotta do? I gotta get this clip off. I had a wrench. And here it is. I had it over in the tractor deck. I hope I don't lose these. Come on, come on. Goes on the bottom, opposite of the white. Wonder if I can sand it with the line in there. Probably. Well, I'll eventually get it in. Still struggling with it. There was a splatter of weld in this one. Here's about my 4th sanding. Got it. Get it so it looks straight up, I guess. Straight up enough. Just gotta put the clamps back on. It's not at the angle where you can see it. And if it is, I can't see it good, so I'm gonna shut this off. Okay, we've got the other one hooked. Might be able to see that. This is the amp gauge. Put these tiny little nuts on. No, they're not the tiny ones. Tiny ones are the ones that hold the wires. They made both of them so they fit the 8mm. So. As soon as I say that, they'll start slipping. Oh. I think they were pulled in tight. Yeah. There. Now the wires. I think I'll put some tape on this to keep this bunched up while I do the wires on the other one. And keep it from getting broken or kinked, I guess. Or I could put a tie on it, so then I'm going to get over and get the wires on the amp. There, that's a little bit neater for me wiring nose. Let's get over there. I think I'll put one of these split 2x4s up around the back so I can push on this one, tipping it over. It doesn't stop. There it does. Why? Oh. I can screw one of these bolts in the holes on the deck, and then the board would push into that. So I'm going to do that. There, now I got something where I can push against, and it doesn't slide away. This wire coming from the solenoid, the thing I'm using for a junction box, from the starter, I can't just pull it because it's going through that piece of metal that supports it. But I think it's, it'll be in a different place when it's up on the deck. But I want to wire it first. Yeah, I guess I got enough now. The thing's marked battery on this side and lights on that side. So I suppose I could put my fuse thing on the side that says lights. But then when they discharge, it might not discharge, but that's okay. And the other one. It's the way that it's going to reach not as good because it's not where it's going to be, but it's going to reach, right? Yeah. Uh-oh. I've got a washer, but no nut. One went down on the ground. Well, pause for the finding the nut. Maybe I got to get a magnet. Now I've got the nut found, but the lock washer fell down in there, so get my magnet thing. Still got the packaging still on it. Here it comes. Probably could use that to put it on there, but now the wire's back there. Okay. Thing is, every time I move my hand, this wire pulls it all out. Not this time. So if I could just get it started. I did it. Alright. So having trouble with the box angled and tilted and pulled all the way out. Just think what it'd be like if it was bolted down. Obviously, I'd have to get a chair and get down to that level. Without the battery being there, I'm pretty sure I can unhook these and hook them without too much trouble. You don't want to tighten these kind of things up, you just strip them very tight. If they come loose, I would eventually figure it out. Better to strip them. Okay, so the heat gauge doesn't have a wire. There are these lights there to light up the gauge. I don't know if the factory ones came with them, because my tractor, when I got it a few weeks ago, it didn't have anything in this bottom hole at all. So each one seems to have a strip to hook up the light bulb, but I'll bet you those are 6-volt bulbs. I don't know. I wish I knew how to tell if they were 6-volt bulbs, but of course they should be, because the tractor's supposed to be 6-volt. So I'm not going to hook those up, and I'm not going to hook up the main wire that comes down from the steering post. And that means I just have to put in the ignition switch now and the light box. Here's the old one. It says amp on the bottom, amps. So maybe that's what mine is. It just doesn't say it. One thing I noticed with the old gauge, and this looks like it's a gauge that's been replaced, there is no bulb thing like that one. It has no light bulb in it. So maybe those are better. Look at my switch here. I got one side going to the points, and the other side isn't hooked to anything yet, so luckily this isn't like the other ones that can go in from the back and I don't have to take them off and put them back on again. So I could just stick this up in there now probably. Like I even know where it goes. Must be a notch in here. Oh, there's a flat spot. There's 2 flat spots and that's it. I'm gonna have to look at my manual and see which one is the fuse, which one is the switch, and which. Oh, I think that one over there has to be the light switch because it takes up more room. The one over there has to be the light switch because it's got the bigger area. So that would leave maybe the fuse is the bottom one and the switch is the top one. They're different sizes, so maybe I don't gotta go look. So let's get that switch back. There it is. Let's drop it in the top one. So there is no flat things on there, so I don't know why these are flat. Okay, there it is. So now I gotta turn this around. Start putting the stuff on there. What I got is multiple stuff over here because I got the light switch stuff. I gotta sort out which is which. Okay, these two are 2 different sizes. So this one's for the light switch and this one's for the key switch. So I'm looking for the stuff that will connect it. If this is something a nut goes against and this is the thing to pull it in and out, there's got to be a nut here. I got to keep looking. It is. It's a real special looking thing. Like a little, it's closed on that side, except for the switch shaft to come through, and I'll get there and lose that. It's a special little thing. Then you put, they had 2 flat washers on first. So I'll do the same. 2 flat washers. The weird washer. It's some kind of lock washer. And then that fancy nut. Come back when I'm done. I got 9/16 and 5/8. Let's see what size it was. It's never going to be either one of them. Is that size? No, neither one. 11/16 and 3/4. I'll try the 3/4 first. Yep. Okay. Seems tight enough. I removed one of the washers that the other guy had on. I don't know why I had 2. It didn't leave many threads. I don't need it being stripped, so. So now the shaft part. I put this counter key through the, they put a hole in the shaft so I can hold it. And I just screw the button on. Okay, I'll tighten it up here and come back. These smaller ones I tied all together with a piece of wire, so maybe I'll have better luck. Let me see. I think it's going to be the 3/8. Let me do this. Let me take it off there and bring it out here and try to figure out which one it is. Much more work, but at least I can. I didn't know I had to screw down there that far. Yeah, it is 3/8. So this is kind of unhandy. I'm going to go get a regular 3/8 wrench. Yeah, I've got plenty of 3/8 wrenches piled up because you never use them for hardly anything. I found. But now I got a spot to use one. Okay. Ignition switch is on. Oh, there goes the light switch dangling here. So, yeah, that's exactly what I got left. This thing in here and this wire here. I got to replace this wire now. I'll just do that off camera. It goes to the taillight. Well, I'm following the taillight wire under here. Seems to be fine. Okay, let's come up and see how it is hooked to the taillight. I don't see any taillight. The wires are wires. Here's the wire right here coming out. Pretty much the center of the seat. This is probably the PTL thing, nothing to do with putting a light on it. I'd say a light on a normal C would be over here, but since there's 2-way brackets there, they took the pulley off. Maybe the light thing's on the pulley. Let me go look. Well, here's the pulley thing. How would it go? See, it's only one way. It's like so. This would be the top. It does have this. I imagine that's for a slow-moving sign. Even though it had one on the fender when I got it, still does right there. Right there. So they had 2 slow-moving. Oh, I see. They probably put that on the fender when when this was taken off for the 3-point hitch adapter. I suppose the light could have been in here. I'm going to go look in the book to see where the light goes. I got a spare light, but since I can't wire the lights anyway because they're 6-volt, I'd still like to know. I'm going to go look. I went and looked in the book. It showed the light over here. And guess what? There's 2 holes here in the platform. They would have had they showed a bracket coming out. Or else the light could just go through one of these holes. Let me go get my light, see if it fits one of these. Of course, these are very small. I think that bolt on the light is very big, so therefore it won't fit. Okay, so far I've got this light. This has a small bolt on it. This one has a bolt going straight out the back. We'll set that one down. That's a no. Boy, how did I ever get this one off? This seemed pretty rusty. And it's a carriage bolt. Okay, let's try it. Let's see. If I put it out here, it get in the way for getting on or not? Nope. Over here it hits that, so over here it goes. Okay, voila. We have a light. Guess I could point it this way for now and then it doesn't stick out. Okay, so now I got something to wire. I'm going to tighten that up. Maybe take that back off and clean up the threads a little and put it back on. So the next guy that takes it off. And I had all these weird mounts. Oh, there's the 2 holes. Wonder if it lines up with those 2 holes. It does. And then one hole. So here's the twisted one. IH made. This is the 45-degree one. So if I needed one of these, would one of these make it better? I think it would just make it stick out further. I guess in this case I just don't need one of these. So now I'm going to patch that wire up front and add a piece to it and shrink it, solder it, shrink it. Then that could be hooked up to the light switch, and I got to patch this back here. I think the wires are worthy of patching. It's just that I'm going to have to get it out from one of those clips. So come back in a while and the light should be wired. Well, I'm still on the taillights. It's a while later, and I cleaned up and tapped, or used a dye on the threads on the bolt on the taillight, and soldered a piece on each end of this taillight and soldered it where it comes around left side of the rear deck, and soldered, shrunk, and taped it on that side. And this side I used a connector and then put a shrink tube over it. I'll probably even tape it. And to clean up the bolts, that bolt, who knew it was going to be all that? To clean up that vertical bolt, that's a carriage bolt. To get it out, I had to take out the other one that goes crossways. Then I cleaned up and used a dye on that. This one's fine thread and that one's coarse. Now I got a finished wired taillight for 6-volt anyway. I won't be able to hook it up right now until I change the bulb on that one. That's at least one of the old style, I think, where you can change the bulb. Those top ones I got to throw away. They're sealed beams. They're rusted up. So I'm going to fire up my map gas here. shrink the tube up. Is that tight? Give some heat. Okay, that was a pretty big piece. I don't think it got that tight on the front side, so I'll tape it, and I'll tape that back one also. So I'll get that done, and now I can finally get to hooking them up. I mean, not hooking them up, where they're just there in case I get 12 volt lights. I don't know, I suppose just because that's rusted out, the 6-volt light would probably still work. I doubt I'll keep them. I don't know. If they're all rusted out at the bottom, I don't know why I would keep them. But if the light still works, maybe. I just had to take the switch back out because this number 1 wire, it's labeled R1. R1. Can't see where it says R1, but this is a 3-wire alternator, the battery being 1 wire, the exciter wire that's labeled R1, and then this other wire that on a tractor you can just come back to the battery nut is field 2. So you got R1 and field 2. Field 2 is wired. R1 wasn't wired. I have it going up there, but then I forgot to put it on the switch, so I'm using the old regulator wires, and I did it to where I didn't take these off in case I ever wanted to put a regulator back on. This thing is under the tube. I soldered to it. And so I'm using one of the heavy regulator wires to run that back. I'm sure that one could be a light one like this one, but they're there, so I use them. And it comes out up here. This, I had to use a meter to see which one it was because there's 2 of them. And it turned out to be this green one, and now it's hooked to the ignition switch because you don't need any juice on that unless it's running. So the ignitions, the points and the exciter wire should get juice when the key's turned on, and I know that'll be happening if it starts because it wouldn't start unless the points, this is hooked to the points, so this goes off. This goes up down to the points on the other side of the tractor. So if it didn't, if it starts, obviously both these have juice. Now this other side coming off there, I got the amp meters not hooked to the switch yet. So to give those juice when the switch is on, I'm going to have to hook this to I guess to this side of the amp meter. One side or the other, I'm going to hook it. It's got to get juice, so it could just go right from this one. That one doesn't have 2 on there yet. This one doesn't have 2. This one says I'm running the lights. Yeah, that way when you turn the key on, the points would make it discharge. And when all this is done, said and done, if the needle's going the wrong way, I'll have to switch both these around anyway. But for now, I'm going to put it on this one. This way, it will juice up the ignition switch, and that will complete everything. Then I can go back to doing the temp gauge and the oil gauge that's still laying over here on the table. Okay, the light switch I'm going to put in now, you won't be able to see that. The top screw I painted red. The left side of the spring here stays to the left when you're putting it in. If you were sitting in the tractor seat, it'd be on the right. So this stays there. This over here, this wire here, this is the fused wire. It's the fused wire. It feeds it. This is the hot. This little strip here, this is the hot. They seem to have it made for something else. If you had a radio or something, I don't know. You could have another fused wire. But I teed into my fused wires so I could hook to that. I didn't realize there was a second. Well, then I would have to have another fuse. This way I wouldn't if I had a radio or something. So this is the fused wire. The two red screws, I think you can see that I painted them red. This one's not quite as painted as nice. The bottom one is the tail light. The top one is the headlight. On a Farmall Super C light switch. And this thing here, as far as I know, is some kind of resistor which cuts down the light power so you have dim. But you don't have to do anything with that. So when I get the lights turned to 12 volt, I will hook up this red wire for the headlights and I'll hook up this one for the taillights at that time. But for now, I'm not putting them on there. I'll run it through the hole. Just because I'm getting sick of wiring this, I'm not even going to rewire the pipe up there. Just because I'm getting sick of rewiring it, the pipe up there, I'm just not gonna do it right now. So that would be simple to do at a later date because I'm not going to have the battery up in the way and this is all going to be accessible. In fact, I could make a little door that goes on the back of this thing, I guess, if I wanted to. So that would complete the wiring. And then I was just going to say, when you screw the light switch back on, first you got to bolt it. It's a 15/16. Then you use the screwdriver to put the knob on. And I think this is a 3-switch light thing. You got probably the first position, whether it's charge or off, and then you got bright and dim. That's all I got. This is not one of the 4 ones. And later on, when I wire up the lights, if I want the gauge light to work on each one, and I can change those to 12-volt bulbs, then the terminal on each light I'll wire together, and I'll run a wire to either the bright, I'll run a wire to the headlight switch where it's going up to turn the lights on when you turn the knob on. So it'll be hooked in with the wire going up the steering post to the headlights. That way when you turn the bright or dim on, those gauges will come on. But I won't worry about that for now. So it's almost time to bolt the box down. And then bolt the 4 bolts on top back on it. So that's 3 on the bottom, 4 on top. I got those bolts to put in. And I always notice more broken things as I work on this. Now I notice that boot's gone on that brake drum. But back to work, and I still got to hook I'm going to do it last so I got the ground wire on the battery. It's still weighing down there in the ground unhooked. So I got that to hook in, and then the belt are still sitting in. They're still sitting over there on the lawnmower, I got 2 belts to try. I'm sure they'll be too short. They only sell them every 1 inch. So I think I got a 22 and a 23 or something. My luck would be the 24. Alright, so I'll shut the camera off for a while, a couple hours, and get some of this work done. I don't like the way that they put that nut back in there. And I got to deal with that, so I got to loosen that nut up so that pulley drops. The pulley drops down, and then once it drops down, I can get the fan belt off, I guess. And then I can put on the outlander belt, then put the fan belt back on, and lift the pulley back up, and tighten it again. But I don't like how it's behind there. I don't think anybody does. So I got all this work to do. I'm going to take dinner break and then go back at it to do the stuff that finishes it up. Haven't even started it for a while and then started it. Alright. Be back. So I showed this in my first video. I'm 194,988. So 194. The tractor number on the seat is in the 194,988, so almost 195. The engine serial number is 203,950. That's coming in real clear. So 203,950. So 195. It's almost 9,000 different in number. So that means they must have made 9,000 power plants to make it different. Just a guess. I got the new oil gauge on. When it tightened down, it hit the distributor rim, but I had to go another one because it was still loose. I guess it all worked out right. Scraped it for that last round. We'll hope it doesn't leak. And up here, I gotta hook up this. Besides doing the belt thing I talked about earlier, I've got to drain the water, I guess, to hook this gauge up. I'm sure if I take that out, I'll let it come out. And the problem with draining the water on the Farmall Super C is it comes out above the tire and goes all over the place. I tried taking the left front tire off and it still kind of went all over the place. So maybe I could build a curved trough out of splitting a piece of 2 or 3 inch PVC pipe, make a little curved trough out of it. That would bring it out here where I could catch it until it quit leaking. I think it's going to leak. I mean, this would go into the water area, the antifreeze area. Okay, well, I'm going to get going with putting the temperature gauge in. I suppose I should say, I could take the stilts out now. There it is, all bolted. Bolts are in. That's one of them anyway. They're in. It's solid. I got the top 4 in. Up there, I took my die and chased all the threads on those fine thread bolts. I'm going to get these stilts out of here, and I'm going to put this temperature gauge on. I was able to catch it. I'm changing this heat gauge thing. I was able to catch it by just having a 5-gallon pail ready. And then when this filled up, I plugged it with my thumb. And with one hand, I emptied it in this 5-gallon bucket. And then, no, I didn't drop it, but I held it like this. This little funnel, I held it. It fit in here for some reason. and I held it up at an angle, and every time it got full twice. And I dumped about half out. It got filled one and a half. So now I can either screw this into the old fitting, or put this new one in. I think I'm going to put the new one in. I'm not sure that's exactly the same. The old one was 11/16, and the new one is 5/8 and 7/8. Of course, when I wiggle the tractor, more will start coming out because it's sitting level. You know, maybe this other bushing is the same. I think you call this a bushing, but I'm not taking any chances. But who knows? This one looks like a metal one. Oh, they are different. I did have to change them. Look at that. Yeah, so I had to change the whole thing because I wonder if I should put pipe dope on this or something. Isn't this going to fit? Put the old one back in. No, I must just have the wrong angle. The old one won't even go back. Well, I'll figure this out. Well, there's no way it's going to fit. Wish I wouldn't have took the other one out now, knowing this. These threads, on the old one are far different. I gotta find where I set the stuff here. This is a regular pipe plug. A bushing. It's a regular American pipe bushing, and it has fine threads inside. And these are fine threads, and they screw in nice. That's the old one. The new one from China must be metric. The size seems the same. Seems similar, but I did have it started, but it doesn't screw in normal like this one. It screws in where you can see the end. It's made like a gas fitting or something. This is a typical American bushing you get at a hardware store, but I don't know. There's probably differences on those threads on the inside, but the outside's normal. I'm going to put a thread against another thread here. Okay, the first two are even, counting from my right. The second two line up. do this off camera. Yeah, they line up. I guess I'll force it in. Oh boy, here we go. Yeah, I guess I'll force it. I know I brought a socket. There we go. Nicely. Well, I thought it was all done for a while until I lined up the threads, and it seemed like they were even. So the other one didn't go hard like this. Okay, I'm just going to stop. I don't know if we'll ever seal, but I probably wrecked my elbow outlet, but you got to try something, I guess. It's either that or have to run all the way to International and pay the price for. And that is not true or something. Well, otherwise it's 5 days. Okay, it's 5 days. They're supposed to copy these things when they make parts. They did things a little different. Okay, so the heat gauge is hooked up. If it's going to leak, I don't know. And if I wreck the threads, I don't know. But it was close enough to go ahead and try. Okay, done with that. Now when I poured in the pail, if I would had 2 jugs, no, I had to keep my thumb over it so I wouldn't have been able to switch jugs. Yeah. Seems like it's easier to pour it back in there if I have it in the pressed on jug. And no use of running it over. I'll just pour this in quick. Passed it, that came out of it. Brand new antifreeze they just put in. Now, well, I guess I could use the big one. Yeah, it's back up to where I can see it, so I lost a tiny little bit. Okay, it's not leaking. Well, there's the plug. It's not leaking. Of course, there's no pressure on it, but I think I'll just forget about how hard that thing screwed in. Something didn't match exact, but I won't worry about it now. So now I got the new oil gauge. Got the water sensor and the new gauge in there. There they are. So, never even had one in that bottom one. And I put the switch in the top hole and the fuse would be in there, but I don't have a screw-in fuse. But you know what I'm going to put in there? I'm going to put the idiot light in. As soon as I go to a junkyard, I'm going to pick up an idiot light from a lawnmower or something. Basically a 12-volt light that will screw in there somehow. And then I can hook it to my number 1 wire. The exciter wire, the R1, not the F2, the R1 that I got coming up here. I got to go into the ignition switch. If I TN a light bulb and put it in that hole, then I'll have an idiot light. That's supposedly what people say on the internet. That then I'll have when that gets going and loses ground, then your idiot light goes off. So that can just go in where the fuse was, and I'll keep the fuse in the holder I bought inside the thing in there, where it won't be easy to get at anymore. But it's easy to get at now because I moved the battery, and it's accessible all the time now, unless I put a door in the back. So I could easily change the fuse. So, okay, another thing done. Of course, if you ever wanted to use the cultivator on there or something, possibly the battery box would be in the way, and then you would just have to get a normal tractor, smaller 12-volt battery, and put it in the hole, I guess, until you're done cultivating or whatever. It could possibly be in the way for certain things, but the cables are close enough to where the battery used to be that you could just, of course that's a big huge battery from a boat or something, I don't know what, but if you had a normal size battery, or they make smaller 12-volt size batteries that are a little bit, they're not as small as a garden tractor, but there are 12 volts that will fit in between there. So if I ever wanted to use the tractor for implements that are made for it, where that battery box is in the way, I could easily take those 3 bolts out, move that battery out of there, and put a smaller battery in and temporarily put it up where it's supposed to be. So I'm not going to worry about it, because I could do that if I had to. So it's good enough for now. It's better than where it was up in the front right. I didn't like that at all. Even covering up with the tarp was tougher. Okay, on to the next thing. Well, unfortunately, when I put the battery cable on, because I just put the ground on right up here, I put it there, and so when I put the battery cable on, I wondered why there was a spark, because I was changing it from positive ground to negative ground, but it was because the starter was, because it was in gear, I must have took it out. It started going ahead, so I quick pulled the cable off, and I was wondering why the starter was stuck. I did have the starter off, and I was wondering why I did take the starter off, but it had nothing to do with taking the starter off. I did take it off to get that wire out of there to repair it. It's in that metal plate that it's like an enclosure over the wire, a metal plate that snaps onto the frame there in one spot. So that's why I had the starter off. But that had nothing to do with it. It was the linkage. The starter linkage here was, see, it won't reach. The starter linkage won't reach. Right now. It won't reach. So it's because this is slanted backwards. This is slanted back. The steering post is now slanted back. Instead of like this, it's like that. Well, not that much. It's just enough to make that starter linkage. It's about a ½ inch off. There's where, well, it's hard to see, but
maybe an inch.
I see. Yeah, there was a shadow there. Here, I got it. That's all the farther will reach. So since I hooked that up, I must have pulled it back, and that's what turned the starter on when I put the battery cable on, because the rod won't come any more forward. See, the handle's all the way forward. So I need another ½ inch slack to be able to hook the rod up. So I guess I either have to lengthen the rod. Everything else seems okay. The throttle and the hydraulic stuff's all okay. This thing here still has slack and everything. Or I could take those two bolts out right there in the back and put washers under them. I'll loosen all four up and then put washers under the back and put enough washers till finally the starter linkage goes back into the spot. Finally goes back in and reaches. Then I would be back where I was, and I just have that shimmed up. So that's what I'm going to try to do now, shim that up. I went ahead and shimmed it up 2 washers worth on each side, and then you got to be careful not to tighten it too much and crack the casting. Not too worried about the washer side. That would kind of pull down to the washers, and the other side would be the side that you don't want to tighten it too much. But that brought it back pretty close to the starter handle. That brought it back pretty close to being able to put the pin in. It's just that with the handle vertical like it was hitting the crossbar, so I took 2 vice grips and I went to about the last 10 inches and I bent the thing so that the starter handle would now be easy to grab. It'd be sideways instead of vertical. This stops it from hitting the light bar and gives it another ½ inch or so, and I was able to put the handle in with no stress on it. And I'm going to go get a cotter pin now, and when I put the battery cable on, there should not be any starter turning over anymore. The cotter pin is so tiny, I thought I'd have to run to the store. I had a little bag with about 10 of these, just for carburetor and Farmall H's, the rod, and now the starter. If this isn't it, then it takes even a smaller one. When it goes, okay, it took that cotter key. That was it. So now when I come back over here, I should be able to put this on without seeing any sparks, unless because the key gives ignition to the points, so I shouldn't see anything, even if the points are closed. There, nothing, no spark. Should be able to leave that on. Now I am going to go back and see if I turn the key on, if the needle goes, well, I guess it isn't going to move unless the points are closed. But I'll try it anyway. I don't see anything. Let me run it then to make sure it still starts, because I did change the coil around and I had the starter off, and but the alternator doesn't have the belt on yet, so it should discharge when I start it. So let me go turn the gas on. My gas valve on the sediment bowl was turned all the way in. Did I leave it on? I always get that mixed up. If the rod goes in, that should shut it off, and when you back it out, it takes it out of the way and completes a path. I don't know. But don't start, then it drained all my gas out probably while I was working on it without me noticing it. But it used to start right out. I don't know what it'll do now. see it discharge. If I hooked the wire on the wrong side, I suppose it wouldn't gauge it. Well, the ignition switch works because that's a good thing. He had bypassed the ignition. He was using this. He had stuck this up in that clip where you're supposed to have a handle to release your 2-point hitch without getting off. So I thought, well, maybe the ignition switch just needs oil or something, and so I did that, and I checked it with an ohm meter, and it seemed to work, and I just proved it worked. So now I got the normal ignition switch hooked up, but it's not showing discharge when I'm running it without the alternator belt on, so I might have a wire to change around yet, so it shows discharge when it's supposed to. Well, now we'll work on the belt. I know what I didn't look at, the oil gauge. Oh, I started it up again. It's all the way over. It's all the way over. I unfroze that one hydraulic handle and putting the WD-40 on it, and the one on this side, since it hooks to the leveling rod, where it goes down, goes from there and it goes down, hooks there, so that must level it or something. And so this side would have been used more than the other side, so that's why I was able to free this side first. And when I moved the handle, even though the handle won't go very far, it did make that arm move, so that's a relief. But the other one is still froze, so I guess that means it's the part up there on the steering column. There's one on the internet where somebody takes that all apart, where they took apart a Farmall C. I'll have to look at that and see what's inside there. But I'm probably going to do the fan belt tomorrow. And, well, that's great about the oil pressure, but I didn't want it to go all the way over, I don't think. Well, I don't know what the deal is with that. All the way over. But anyway, now I should have a temperature gauge. Let's see. No, that's not leaking. No. Okay, so now I should have a temperature gauge. I got an oil gauge, and the amp meter gauge should show a charge when I get the belt on. All right, tomorrow's the belt. Okay, today I'm going to get going on the alternator belt behind the fan belt, and right behind this water temperature sensor is the slanted part. This slanted part here that holds it's like a gusset. You can't see what's back there. So what I was worried about, I thought you had to get a wrench back there to hold it, but possibly, that's what I'm going to find out, possibly that whatever's back in there is maybe made so it doesn't turn, and then you just got to do this nut here. So I'm going to find out what size is that nut is there. That's right there by the end of the screwdriver tip. And then I'm going to loosen that and see if it's true. It doesn't turn on the other side. And then if it doesn't, well then the only hard part then would be getting that, pry that down once it's loose and getting that fan belt over the top of the fan blade. So here I go. Okay, let me try a 3/4. Nope. Let me try a 15/16. No, it's even too wide. Well, I got the 2 oddball wrenches you never use. I don't even keep them out on the table. A 7/8 and a 13/16. So 7/8 looks like one of those wide ones again, compared to that one. I don't know. I guess you can't see the difference, but it's either not fitting in there and wedging. There it goes. That's the 13/16. Okay. Got the right wrench. Now the other part you worry about, either it turning on the back or it not breaking loose. Okay, I got it going back and forth a little bit, so I'll sit here and keep oiling it and doing that for a little bit. There's not really a place for the oil to get in there, so I'm just wasting it. It's dripping down by the balance wheel, so I'd have to get it a little loose for anything to get on it, I think. Still not knowing how it really works. I'm going to go back to going back and forth. I'm going to try and take this governor rod off so I get a little more. I can barely go one little turn with the wrench. Oh man, I'm going to get that cutter key out. Just getting that cotter key out will take me forever, so do it off camera. I did notice it's a brand new cotter key put square in. It goes straight across and it's never been bent. So that could be helpful, but I suppose it's stuck. So I got this little screwdriver in there, and then I could hit it with a hammer maybe, or even just this. No, wait for that. Try this. It's not working. Oh, I just learned by accident. If I push the governor rod in, they didn't put it flush. That way the key sticks up. And I could probably get some, I can get it on this side and pry. Well, that made it move, so now I can get it with the needle nose. Well, if I do, that'll bend it. Didn't bend it. It's still perfectly straight for me to put back in. One thing out of the way. Now to work that bolt back and forth and have a little more, the rod still won't come off. Yeah, the rod doesn't come off. The governor rod doesn't come off. Hey, maybe I could just speed up the throttle and it would get out of the way. Almost, too bad. So I got to take these 2 bolts out of the head. At least one of them, because then it will let me bend the bolt. This one right here. If I take just that one out, there's another one up here that holds the rod. And then I can get that out of the way. Yeah, here's the rod. It dropped down nicely doing that. I didn't think about that, but the rod that it hooked to is still in the way. But I think there is a difference. and I gotta put the clip up on the floor of the tractor where I put the bolt, and then I'll have put this back in when I'm satisfied with my belt, and I have to run to town. I see my wife picked up a 22 and a 23 inch. I'm pretty sure it's going to take a 24 to 25 inch belt, so I'll have to run to town. I'm real concerned with getting the wrench all the way on there to get the next pipe. If I don't get it all the way on there correctly, I don't need that. I mean, it's going really, really hard. I might have to heat it up, I guess. If I don't get this on there correctly and smooth off the hex head, then I'm in real trouble. But, oh, hey, I just had a breakthrough. It's loosening up, and just in a few seconds I'll be able to. Good, something's going my way. There, it's dropping. Oh, I shouldn't have to go any more than with my 13/16. Now to try to get the belt up. Well, that was easy. Pull it from the other side. Well, I got it off the water pump. There isn't much room to get it off the bottom of the balance wheel. It looks like the belt's bigger than the opening. That calls for my gloves. I'm not going to get cut up. Well, I don't know if you'll see anything or not, but I took it off the water pump, then it went back up on top. Now I got it back off here. What's this belt say? It's a B32, and it's got a 50. Look at that later. It just doesn't fit through there. They didn't give it enough room when they designed the tractor. It looks like about a I don't know, about the same as the area on my screwdriver, and you can see the belt's bigger than that. So, yeah, I'll just have to figure out what the trick is. I'm going to try just going around to the other side using a tire iron to just force it out of there. If I damage it, I guess I buy a new one. Yes, that worked. I put the pry bar between the radiator outlet hose. It kind of still touched the hose and the belt, and I just, got it to go like that, and that forced it out all the way, and I suppose I'll have to use this to force it back in. I can get it out of there pretty easily. Just got to get it off the fan board. Okay. Yeah, it's a Napa. It's a Napa B32, and then for some reason it says 50 there. That's all that says, Napa B32. I'll measure the distance across. I measured the distance across the fan belt, and it was 5/8 inches. And I know that makes sense because the generator belt's going to be 1/2 inch, and you can see the bigger pulley on the fan one than you do the other one. You can see how one is bigger than the other. This one right here This one right here being the skinny one. This one right here being the skinny one, and that one being the fat one. I tried the longest one I got to 23. It's not even long enough to go over the fan blades. So I'm going to come back with a 24, 25, 24 and a 25 at least, maybe a 26. And the weird part is I measured it with a string, and I got somewhere between 21 and 3/4 and 23 and 1/4. So they must measure them from the outside. I tried to measure it and have something right on the first trip, but they must measure them from the outside. So this time I'm going to bring these back to the hardware store, and I'm going to go over to auto parts store instead. Not that it'll make much difference, but I just got to come back with the right measurement. I ordered a 24 and a half, and I brought home a half by 25. And also ordered a new belt that would be equal to this Napa belt. It's 18 bucks. It's got some cracks in it. So I'm gonna, if this one's like a lawnmower belt though, and it's green and it's expensive. It's like 20 bucks. A 24 and 9/16 one from Gates that has the nice notches in it to turn your alternator is only 12 bucks or 13 bucks. So if this one is just a hair too long, I can use that one, but it's a holiday weekend. So I have to wait till Monday at 2 o'clock or something to try it. So this is going to be a long project unless I keep this one. And then I won't have the new fan belt either. So put this on pause and try to put this on. See if this one will go around the fan. Oh yeah, a little different. That one will go around the fan blades. There we go, gonna know in a second. Okay. This is my mistake. All I would have had to do is lift up the pulley that the fan's on, and I would have gained some length. You're kidding me. Still too short? But the good part, going back to get to 26, I gained room from the alternator to the exhaust manifold distance. Yep, still too short, so I got to run in the house and call the auto parts store and tell them to cancel the 24 and 9/16, that the 25 doesn't reach. Might reach if I took off the alternator and put it inside the V, and then. Or lift the pulley up with your tire iron. That's a goofy way to do it. So. But I didn't think of it. So I need a. I think I could get a 26. Okay, so now I gotta wait till Monday, or else go back to town. Okay, I'm back. This is the third trip. This time I got a half by 26. So I'll get it around the fan and we'll see. Okay, let's play it. Okay, it's still struggling to go around the rim of the pulley here, but it's going to go this time. There. All right. So the key for me was, what was it? 26. That was the 3 trips to town. If only I'd have known, I would have started at 22 and got all the way up to 27 or something and just took them all back. Yep, 26 is going to be perfect. I'll tighten it down there. And that should do it.
Until I realized when you lift that pulley up, it loosens the opener.
Alright. Now to put the fan belt back in, I found that John Deere belt. The only thing is, I've got one of these B32s ordered. If I use this John Deere belt that seems to be the same size, it says M400 15M. M400 15M. If I use that, then I'd never be able to have the number left from this one because it'll probably get thrown away. So let me try it anyway, and then when the belt comes on Monday, I might take this one back off. Just to have this number, this John Deere number, doesn't tell you how long it is. This one at least, B32, it must mean it's a 5/8 belt and it's 32 inches long. This number, it's definitely not 15 inches long, and it's not 400 inches, so what's all this mean? So,
Must be a part
I'm
number.
going to put this on pause while I struggle getting this on there a little, and then I'll have to, I gave up putting the John Deere one on, it must be a different size, or at least it was stiffer. I'm just going to get the one on Monday, it took part that comes in and replaces this whole one. It's on the outside anyway. I found out, put it on, put it around the fan, the fan blades, then put it around the top, pulley, then force it around the bottom with your tire iron, and then finish it over here to squeeze it between the power steering and the radiator outlet. That's how I got it. Now I'm going to tighten it up, and with my tire iron, of course, and a wrench, 13/16, and then fire it up and see if I got an alternator. I put the fan belt down where you get a half-inch of movement or more. I don't want to pull too tight on the bearings. There's no reason to get it that tight. But then there's one thing I was thinking of before that then I forgot, is the pulley goes down to get the belt off. So that would have changed this one. So now the belt that was perfect because the pulley was down there might be too big now. So I still got a little adjustment left there. A little bit. Let's pull it and see if now it's too big, and then I gotta take off the fan belt and go back to get to 25 or maybe a 25 and a half and try it again, where this time I gotta lift the pulley up before I try it. Oh, I tightened it up. Okay, it's loose now, so let's see if I'm gonna run out of adjustment. I would like it back because I don't like it being so close here to the manifold anyway, but if it runs out of adjustment, I would have to weld onto this for this belt to work. Here goes. I think it's just sticking. I don't think it's that tight yet. Let me put it down. Oh, there's just that half-inch, about a half-inch of adjustment left, maybe 3/4. I guess that'll have to be good because because it's tight. So that one's tight. This one's tight. So 26 is the longest it could be. But at least I do get away from the manifold here with that 26, so all's good. It's just that, here's the thing, when I went to O'Reilly's, I wanted the Gates belt. That's only $12.99 and they're black. O'Reilly won't carry those. They order them in. So then you end up buying this $22 lawnmower belt. That's, of course, supposed to be a better belt, they say. So they get you with the catch-22. We don't carry the $12.99 one, but we'll order it for you, and then you can't finish your project. So I end up with this green one that's almost double the money. But what are you going to do? Other people might live near a store where they carry the Gates belts, but then maybe they charge more for them. I don't know. But okay, time to start it up and see if I get a charge. Okay. Here's what we got when I started it up. Because there's nothing to show on the gauge. I started up, I found I didn't put the governor rod on. So I shut it off, I put the governor rod on, and incidentally it was idling without the governor rod on. It's idling too fast though, so I'll have to deal with that. So then I started back up. And I found out the alternator's charging, but I'm not getting anything on the gauge. How did I find that out? The tractor wouldn't shut off, even after I pulled off the battery cable. So what was the electronic ignition running on? It was running on the alternator juice, so it must be working. But I must not have it on the right side of the gauge or something to pick it up. So then the only thing left to do is to look at my belt alignment. So I came over and looked at my belt alignment, and now I can see it because this is the first time I ever even put a belt on it. So it seems to be it probably has to go. It seems to be it probably has to go towards the radiator, maybe 1/8 of an inch. But depends how far away you are from the pulley. If I straighten it out in front of the pulley, so it's pretty darn close. I could figure out how to adjust an 1/8 inch if I wanted it absolutely perfect, and I do. But so that's okay the way it is for now. So now I got to figure out why the alternator isn't going through the amp meter, or is that amp meter I got from China no good? So what I'll probably do is play with my old amp meter. I don't know that was bad because it came without any generator hooked up with no belt. So that's my next thing now. I'll have to play with the. I'm gonna have to play with the gauge and the wire from the alternator and see why I'm not getting anything on the gauge. Alright, I put the old meter on. So anyway, you have to take my word for it. It went way up. It went way up there. It went way up to that first line by the plus when I first started it up because the starter would have used a little electricity. And then it came down because the battery's pretty charged. So if that worked there, maybe I can copy the way those wires are and put that one that way, and then maybe it'll go up. So I'm going to have to, looks like just switch them around. And the reason the tractor won't shut off, even having this cable off, which is, this one here is the actual battery, the one that says battery. You think to be the one that does the charging because It said so on this gauge. It said so on this gauge, but when I pulled off the battery cable and shut the key off, it kept running until I pulled the coil wire off. So that means it's the exciter wire. The exciter wire that I got going up to the ignition switch. I think I got it to go into one side of the ignition switch, which would get shut off if the switch is shut off. So let me go check that. There's the problem on the ignition switch. That pointy screw, not supposed to be a pointy screw, but that pointy screw is supposed to be the one the exciter wire's coming in on, and then the points are supposed to go out on the other side. So instead, I got the exciter wire coming out on the other side, so that would keep the electronic ignition juiced up all the time. So I got to switch that wire around, and then it'll start shutting off with the key. The amp meter I could change with this 8mm, but the switch screws, that pointy one, I'll have to take the switch out because they're pointing straight up. Okay, the gauge is switched around where it worked with the other gauge when I switched it around, and it might shut off with the key now without taking off the coil wire. Let's see. No, the gauge didn't show any charge. I guess that gauge is bad. I'll put the other one on. And let's see if it at least shuts off with the key. Okay. We solved one of the two. The China gauge is bad, so I'm going to switch it back to the other one. Let's try it one more time. I, this time, went from the other side of the amp meter back to the battery, maybe to complete a circuit. I'm always guessing, so.
Bingo. That's it. So the other gauge wasn't bad then. I just needed to run one more wire.
Oh, now it shows the meter.
Yeah.
Ah, you got to complete the circuit for it. Back to the
Fine
battery.
one.
Okay, so
Gauge didn't come all the way back.
yeah, that meter isn't spot on when it's so then I could put the other meter back in, I guess. But I just don't feel like it right now. Plus it isn't even marked amps, so well, except for where the V-belt's running a hair crooked. This is the first time I had a belt on it, so I had nothing to line it up except my eyes. So it looks pretty straight, really. It's like an 1/8 inch that way.
Maybe I could put a washer in there.
But can't have everything.
Or I could take the alternator off
Turn my attention
and
to
bend those
screwing
brackets.
The axles equal and cleaning the carb. But that's enough for this video. I'm going to download it. Thanks for watching.